Am I the a-hole? I had a fight with my ex over her affair child. Our son picked it up and is now rejecting his half-brother. I, 38 male, had a fight with my ex-wife, 41 female, about her child Sam, 7 male, and need an outside opinion. We have a son together, Jake, 9 male, but Sam is not mine. Our divorce was caused by my wife's infidelity, and I told my ex up front when she was pregnant that I will never take any responsibility for Sam, not emotionally nor financially. However, I figured my emotion out and got them in order to protect my son Jake, and that includes accepting Sam as his little half-brother and allowing him on special events to visit me and Jake. Our custody agreement is clear. Every second weekend, Jake visits his mom. So, my son had his birthday last month, where I allowed Sam and X to visit and celebrate with us. It wasn't something big because of the global situation, just about 15 people, Jake's friends and some family members. Sam loves to mimic Jake, and when he saw him calling me dad, he started to call me dad too. I spoke with him calmly and told him that I don't want to be called dad by him, but he is allowed to call me by my name. When he had asked why, I explained that he is not my child and I am not his dad. Then he asked me who his father is, and I respond that I don't know. He then ran to my ex and asked who his father is, but my ex just sent him back to me to ask. So I just told him that his mom doesn't know it either, but I'm not his dad, and again he should call me by my name. Nothing more happened on that day, because even I noticed my ex trying a crappy move on me, but I just ignored it. The problem is Sam has told this to his school friends as the class have played a game where they talked about their family. I had to say, here, some children are pure evil, because now some of Sam's classmates have started bullying him, and calling him a bastard, and worse. My ex called me about it, but I just told her that she has to fight over this with Sam's teacher and the other kids' parents, because it is not my problem. She then started yelling at me on the phone, and it is my fault and called me some names. I responded that I have noticed what she tried to pull at Jake's birthday party, and that his problem wouldn't exist if she could just keep her legs closed for other men, and then told her she should try to find Sam's actual father if she wanted a man to take care of her son. X involved our parents in this fight, and now my mom is nagging me over this and sides with X. However, I was not gentle with her either when she called me. Note that my mom wanted a daughter since forever, and saw my wife as her first daughter. That's why I'm in low contact with her, because she tried to force me to forgive my ex. Now, here is why I might be an a-hole. My son have picked up this whole mess. It is now mean to his little brother and stopped playing with him and teases him as well. I actually have made an appointment with a therapist to solve this, but I don't think I can solve it on my own. Am I the a-hole here? Edit. I can't be the father of Sam as it's medically impossible. Also, a court-ordered paternity test confirmed that I am not the father. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. 1. You're not Sam's father and having him call you by first name is totally fine. 2. You're civil and have tried to keep Sam in Jake's life. 3. You're civil with X despite the history and her recent attempts at trouble. 4. Jake picking up on it seems an accident. However, you need to be more careful to prevent your son from hearing future arguments with your ex. OP, do not manipulate custody time with your ex to reward/punish your ex, certainly without talking to your lawyer first. Not an a-hole. X needs to take responsibility for her actions. She shouldn't have told Sam to go back to you for an answer. Speak with your son and get him into therapy, and they'll help to explain the reasons why he's being mean. Your mom and X are the a-holes here. Probably want to turn OP into a father figure. Not an a-hole. Not an a-hole for not allowing Sam to call you dad. But you need to realize that Sam is innocent. It's not his fault that his mother cheated on you. You should talk to Jake. Don't allow him to be horrible to his younger brother. Right. That was my only problem with the story. It seems that there are things he should be saying to his ex. He is choosing to say these things to a child instead. He's not an a-hole, but Sam isn't an a-hole either. He is a kid being put between two adults. Next story. Am I the a-hole for taking my son on a trip I knew his step-siblings wanted to go on? My ex and I have a son, Kai, 11. Ex and I broke up when he was 2 and my ex married his wife when Kai was 6. There was a lot of mess in Ex's house regarding his ex-step-kids, Mia and Logan, both 12. From what I gather, their dad has been bad-mouthing my ex and Kai from the beginning and poisoned the kids against them. So I've always been hesitant to not do stuff that could be seen as me rubbing things in their faces. Because of the costly back and forth in courts between his wife and her ex, my ex could not afford to do big things with the kids. Kai had mentioned this trip that his step-siblings wanted to go on before. He told me he'd love to go, but really hoped they wouldn't go together because he didn't want to go with them, because they wouldn't want him there and he didn't like being around them. During the final week of school, some of me and Logan's friends were very cruel to Kai, and me and Logan were standing around laughing with him. At one point, it turned very dark, and the principal called the parents of all involved students. What transpired was Logan and me had told their friends something about Kai. That and just general kid bull was used to make him feel like crap. I was pissed. After the incident, I decided I needed to stop catering to the stuff my ex couldn't do with the kids, and just do whatever regardless of whether Mia and Logan dreamed of doing it. So I took my son on a trip to the place he told me he wanted to go to, but not with his step-siblings. He had a great time, and I told him as long as he didn't brag or rub it in, we'd done nothing wrong, because he worried a bit that Logan and Mia would be mad. X found out about it because Kyle left a small trinket in his bag from the trip, and X found it. X then called me and asked me why I took Kai there, and I said because Kai wanted to go. X said his stepkids wanted to go too, and why would I take Kai someplace they'd likely wanted to go? I said I don't care. I could take my son where I wanted. He told me it made me an a-hole because his stepkids have feelings too. He doesn't know I knew they wanted to go, but am I the a-hole here? Not the a-hole with caution. As a former middle school principal and parent, I can tell you that the stepchildren are at an age where bullying especially rears its ugly head. Parents tell the victim to ignore it, walk away, etc. But Kai can't do that if he lives there and goes to school with them. Personally, I document everything, especially the school incident. I communicate with Kai a lot on how he's doing. I've successfully used a 1 to 10 scale. After explaining, a 1 is I need help now and 10 is everything is amazing. I'd ask, what are you today? And I'd get a baseline. What I'd look for is a trend. Hopefully with strategies, support in any form, and time, the days are more 7 to 10s than 2 to 5s. I used this over my career with students and my own children during hard times. If yesterday was 4 and today's a 5, I'd concentrate on how it was better than yesterday and concentrate on tomorrow. This also worked very well for me when assessing my daughter's deep depression in 8th grade. It was bad, and I needed some kind of baseline for when I needed to go extreme parenting. It happened, and I put her in counseling. She's great now, early 20s. So for UOP, I'd keep some kind of data/notes to see if there comes a time that you need to revisit the boundaries of custody. Maybe they should only be at their dad's when the other kids are out of the house. I'd say tough parenting ahead. You may really have to step up and be the bad guy by forcing change to protect Kai. The trip itself I see as a positive for Kai to make sure he knows he's special and not doing anything wrong. But to caution, those kids will hate him more now and will look for ways to make him hurt, mental and maybe more. They will weaponize their peers and family against Kai. Bullies are some of the smartest and manipulative children I've ever worked with. They know who is where and they capitalize on weakness. Here's where your ex fits in. Enough said. Good luck, and I'm glad Kai had something positive to do. My guess is those days with you are really high in the scale. Totally not the a-hole. And piggybacking off this post, a friend currently has a client who is going through the same thing. Ex remarried a horror show with a horror show daughter who tortures client's kid. They took Ex back to court and they just rendered a decision that new wife and her kid have to leave the house for the duration of visitation. That is something you might want to look into. Your ex probably can't afford a legal fight on both ends, so he's likely to cave. Not the a-hole. It is not even close. What a nightmare for your kids who have old step-siblings that are b****s. You don't owe them any special treatment, and especially not awesome trips. Even if the step-siblings weren't that, there's no good reason to deprive your son of trips just because their own family can't take those same trips. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for using some of my stepson's camp savings to buy a replacement sneakers for my son? My son Chris' 16th birthday was weeks ago. His mom, my ex-wife, couldn't be with him due to work but sent him a pair of Adidas sneakers as his birthday gift, as Chris is a runner and he enjoys running every day as a way to relieve stress and anxiety. My stepson Jake, 17, saw the sneakers and said they looked like the ones his favorite artist Kane Brown was wearing in Famous Friend's music video, and so he got so hung up on them, always asking Chris to see them and try them on. Chris let him see them but not wear them, because Jake has bigger feet and he was worried he might ruin them. Jake wanted to wear the sneakers in front of his friends, but Chris didn't let him leave the house with them. Jake ended up sneaking out with them a couple of times, which made Chris hide them from him, since he kept taking them without permission. Jake was no longer able to sneak out wearing the sneakers, and begged Chris to let him wear them one last time at a party his friends had. Chris said no, but Jake somehow was able to locate the sneakers. But instead of going out with them, he cut them with a hand pruner and kept them in his room while Chris and I looked for them, till his mom found them. Chris saw the damage and was upset. I grounded Jake and promised Chris to get a replacement. But when his mom called to tell me those sneakers are worth $600 and had to be replaced, I was in utter shock. I saw the receipt, and even then, I couldn't believe it, because $600 is way more than I can afford. Chris's mom is a cardiologist, so she can afford this stuff, but I obviously can't. I was fuming. I let Jake know how much he messed up, and told him I will be replacing the sneakers using the money saved for his week-long summer camp. Jake had a meltdown, and said he was already punished and that it wasn't fair to punish him further. My wife thought I exaggerated, and talked about how important summer camp is for Jake as he's been waiting for it for months. I let her know that Chris's mom is rightfully upset her gift for him got ruined, and because Jake acted out of spite and maliciousness, then it's only fair that he pay for replacement. My wife assured me if Jake knew those sneakers were that expensive, he would have never ever touched them, but thought Chris wasn't letting him borrow them on purpose. What's done is done, and I made my decision final. But now both my wife and Jake are giving me the silent treatment and refusing to talk about it. My wife thinks it's crazy to spend $600 on new sneakers. I agree, but those aren't mine, so needed replacement. So am I the a-hole? Edited to add that because Chris's mom sends somewhat expensive items to Chris, Jake would sometimes feel jealous, which is understandable, but I make sure to treat both boys equally by getting them equal stuff. My wife thinks that Chris should be sharing with his brother, and he does, but there are things that just cannot be shared. Now for the comments. Not a-hole. Seems like Jake is learning a hard lesson that actions have consequences. I am unsure where your wife is coming from. It doesn't matter how expensive the shoes were. Her son destroyed someone else's property. Maybe this will teach him to not destroy others' belongings before it becomes something super serious. Like some here have pointed out, I think that Jake did have an idea how expensive the sneakers were, since he mentioned they looked like the ones his favorite singer wore in a music video. Another thing is that Chris's mom is upset over what happened and she has every right to be. $600 is a lot. And even though I personally wouldn't or couldn't spend that much in sneakers, it's her money that she worked for, so I think it's fair to be expecting a replacement. Exactly. Honestly, I don't see a case where you are the a-hole. I wasn't even thinking about Jake actually knowing or not, just pointing out your wife's point of, if he knew how expensive they were, he wouldn't have destroyed them, is kinda moot. Even if the shoes were $20, they still aren't his. Good luck, Opie. I think you're doing the right thing. Her statement about Chris not letting Jake borrow the shoes on purpose is also weird. Like, Chris has the right to not lend his stuff out. Jake doesn't get to borrow something just because he asks. It's not just the shoes. Because Chris's mom sends expensive items to Chris, my wife thinks that Chris should be generous and share with his brother, which he does. He shared his Xbox and other things, but shoes aren't to be given for any reason no matter how nice they looked. Your wife is an a-hole dude. She's jealous of your ex and wants to make your son share the wealth without any of them deserving it. You picked a real winner here. Your son doesn't need a reason to not let others use his stuff. It's his. It belongs to him. She wants nice things for her kids. She needs to work for them. Last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not leaving my newborn twins and toddler while my sister had a meeting? I, 23 female, have a 2-year-old son and 2-month-old twins. I am a stay-at-home mom, and my sister, 25 female, who is in grad school, has been staying with us while her apartment building gets fumigated. She had a meeting with one of her professors to talk about some stuff regarding a project, and set up her laptop in the kitchen. It's worth noting that the kitchen is right off the children's play area/bedroom, and she also has a bedroom all to herself that has a desk, and the Wi-Fi is decent in. About 5 minutes into her meeting, my 2-year-old who was playing with his toy trucks got hurt and started crying. He wasn't even having a tantrum, just crying because he got hurt. After a few minutes, my sister excuses herself from her meeting for a moment and yells at me to take the kids out of the house and that she needs total silence. I told her I wasn't going to take my 3 small children out by myself with no stroller, which was unfortunately left in the car my husband took that morning. She has been telling me all week that I ruined her meeting and that I need to get my children under control. My parents agree that I was being unreasonable. Am I the a-hole? If she isn't happy with your children behaving like children in their home, she can stay at a hotel, with your parents or with other friends. Not the a-hole. You can't set up shop in a living space and then be upset when the children who live there behave as children. Yep, not the a-hole. It's completely unreasonable for the sister to stay over in a house with kids and expect total silence. She has a hell of a nerve trying to kick Opie out of the house for the whole day instead of moving outside, or even to her bedroom, herself. Not the a-hole. People who work from home have to find quiet spaces all the time for meetings and such. She could have taken that meeting in her room, or she could have sat outside herself. I do it all the time. I have a coworker who takes calls in her car. There are also apps that will completely cancel out background noise as well, and a few of my coworkers use that when finding a quiet space is impossible. She's a guest in your home. You are doing her a favor. She has no right to tell you how to live in your house, and if the meeting was that important, she would have made sure to set up in a reliably quiet space like the grown adult she is. I take meetings in a tiny closet or in the garage. It's the wild, wild west out here competing for quiet meeting spaces in our house. Not the a-hole, Opie. Not the a-hole. This work-from-home thing has been going on for 18 months. Supervisors, bosses, professors, co-workers are all used to this and are generally unfazed. Your sister is incredibly entitled to expect you to pick up your young children and leave your home for her. Your mother is way out of line and needs to be told to mind her own business. Tell your sister that if the accommodations don't meet with her approval, she can find another hotel more to her liking. Am I the a-hole for contaminating honey with peanut butter and not telling my peanut allergic housemate? Yeah, this sounds bad, but hear me out. I live with a fake name who's allergic to peanuts. He says it's fine if I eat them around him, but be careful with cross-contamination. I limit my peanut consumption. Don't eat peanuts food around him just in case, and I'm careful when I do. I clean everything after. I don't want to take any risks because it's not my risk to make. 2 years and not a problem, until last week. I have a doting mother who loves giving fancy gifts. Like my Easter basket this year, which had not much in the way of chocolate, but much in the way of homemade preserves, and a jar of honey. Not your supermarket plastic tub, but a proper glass jar. It looked so fancy I expected to see the names of the bees listed on it. Nope, just the location the bees lived in. Now, we have some food rules. Bottle of milk in the fridge. Ours. The fancy honey with my name stuck on it for good measure. Mine. We're pretty good with not stealing each other's food, so I feel pretty safe with leaving fancy stuff in the kitchen. Only I don't have much opportunity to eat fancy honey. I mean, pretty sure you're meant to do something special with fancy honey, right? Probably, but I don't know what. So last week, when I made myself some toast, I made a childhood favorite. Peanut butter and honey on toast. And because it was my honey with my name taped across the top, I don't think twice before dipping that peanut butter knife in my fancy honey. Probably a waste of fancy honey, but we were out of regular honey. After, I washed the knife and plate before putting them into the dishwasher and wiped down the bench just in case. I wasn't home a couple of days later when fake name decided to help himself to my honey. Now, following a hospital trip, he's home safe and we've had a chat about how to prevent such things in the future, but the question has arisen. Who here is the a-hole? Me for not writing contains nuts on the contaminated honey despite knowing my fake name is allergic? Or fake name for looking at my fancy honey and deciding to help himself to just a little bit? I mean, it's pretty annoying to have someone else eat your food, but the punishment shouldn't be a potential death sentence. And let's face it, who hasn't swiped just a little bit of a spread or condiment which doesn't belong to them? And time to fess up here, I'm the reason we were out of regular honey. We can't decide, so tell me Reddit, am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. This never would have happened if your roommate hadn't helped himself to your food without asking. This is all on him. Just a quick, hey, can I have a bit of your fancy honey? Would have prevented this entire situation, as you obviously would have told him, nah bro, I double dipped a peanut butter knife in that. Ask before you help yourself to other people's things. If I was OP, I would straight up tell him not to touch any of my foods or condiments going forward. But the roommate sounds like he is not the type to take personal responsibility for himself and blames other people for his mistakes. I would dare to say he would probably be quick to pursue a lawsuit if he suffered severe injuries. Don't let him misconstrue your past generosity as an open-door policy of helping himself. Explicitly tell him no. I don't know. It sounds more like this is a friendly debate they're having here than that he is about to call his lawyers. But maybe I'm getting the tone wrong. Not a-hole. Your roommate learned to leave other people's things alone. When you're highly allergic to foods, you only eat things you know are safe. If he hadn't been eating something that didn't belong to him, he would have been fine. Exactly. Not a-hole. With allergies, your roommate should have been more careful and only use stuff he knew was his. Not a-hole. He knows and has approved you eating peanut products in the house. Therefore, he knows there's a risk of cross-contamination with your foods. Something clearly labeled as yours is therefore not guaranteed safe. And the onus is on him to check with you around cross-contamination before helping himself to it. It's not unreasonable for him to have a bit. It's unreasonable, and therefore he's the a-hole, to blame you for his emergency when you had already taken steps to make it clear this was for you only. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for not giving my neighbor's kids good food? So, I know that this is really stupid, but some of my friends told me that I'm in the wrong here. To get started, here's our cast. Me, female 38, neighbor female 32, my husband, male 39, kid 1, male 8, kid 2, male 7, my kid, female 8. My neighbor moved in not too long ago with her 2 sons. Seeing that she had a lot of unpacking to do, I went over to her house and offered to babysit her kids for her. She thanked me and walked her kids over to my house. I kept some of my son's toys from when he was younger, he has moved out already, and set them up in my yard. My daughter is fairly extroverted and immediately went outside to play with them. It was around noon at the time, so I started to make lunch. I made some turkey sandwiches with American cheese, a simple lunch that we always have. I brought out some plates so that the kids could eat outside on our benches. The kids loved it, and 30 minutes later the sandwiches were gone and they were back playing soccer and tag. A few hours later, the neighbor's kids and my child marched inside and sat down, tired. I put on some cartoons and told them I would be right back as I left to go get the neighbor to pick up her children. She looked tired, but was happy that she didn't have to deal with little boys running around while she unpacked. She came over and took her boys. By this time, my husband was parking in our driveway, home from work. My daughter had a fun time telling her father all about her day while I ordered pizza on my phone. About 5 minutes later, while I was still asking what everyone wanted, I hear a knock on my door. It was the neighbor. I thought she was going to thank me again, but she got angry and shouted at me. The following is some basic dialogue from what I can remember, though this did happen a few weeks ago. Me. Oh, hey neighbor. Neighbor, look, we need to talk right now. Me? Oh, sure. What do you need? Neighbor, well, my sons told me that you gave them sandwiches for lunch. Me, yes, I did. They really Neighbor, well, that is not enough for my boys. They're growing boys, and they need to have good food, and not whatever you gave them. Me, really? Neighbor, yes. Me, no. And I shut the door in her face. My daughter didn't really hear any of our conversation, but she asked me. I just told her that the neighbor didn't like sandwiches. She didn't bother to ask further and watched some shows in her room. My husband just laughed, and so did I. The lady got mad that I fed food to her sons for free, right? But as it turns out, 3 of my close friends told me that I was rude and I should have just given them something better. We had mashed potatoes and some leftover pork that wouldn't take more than 29 minutes to heat up and serve, but I didn't feel like giving them that. I don't see the problem with what I did, but I trust my friends and I want to know if I should apologize. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. I feel like an absurd number of people ate a turkey sandwich for lunch today, and they're probably going to continue with their lives happily. No good deed goes unpunished, I guess. Hope she doesn't ever need a neighbor to babysit in a jam. I know I did. It was delicious. I made my kids grilled cheese for lunch. Am I going to hell? 20 years from now, when those kids are doing hard time in the penitentiary, it's all going to trace back to that goddamn turkey sandwich. You might be onto something here. Statistically speaking, probably a lot of people currently incarcerated in the US have had a turkey sandwich. Day after Thanksgiving is the worst for crime. That's why it's called Black Friday. Not day hall. I thought the issue was going to be allergy or religion related. I do think you should have confirmed with your neighbor about the food because that easily could have become a disaster. That being said, I don't know why a turkey sandwich is bad or why your neighbor and friends think they needed something better. I think if you have children with food allergies and you drop them off with a brand new neighbor you've never even met before so you can unpack, you should absolutely be telling this person about your children's allergies, not expecting them to come back and ask what's okay to serve for lunch. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my roommate I'm no longer okay with her boyfriend staying 5 to 7 nights a week? I've been living with my roommate, ex-best friend, since last August. When we signed the lease, I told her that moving in with one roommate, her, was already a big compromise for me as I really value my alone time and having a safe and quiet place. We discussed her boyfriend coming over a couple times a week. At the time it was on the weekends and once during the week, and that includes staying the night. And even that agreement was excessive for me, but I was willing to work with it. Since then, her boyfriend has been over 5+ nights a week every single week. In the last 10 days, he has been back at his own house one time. He showers here, does his laundry here, eats food here. I tried so hard to bite my tongue because my roommate was my best friend for a long time, but she completely disrespected my boundaries. I asked her a few months back if he could be here less because I was having a hard time settling into my apartment on the weekends because I never had space to utilize common areas without him just being there all the time. She flipped out and told me I have no right to determine how often he's here. Last night, I lost my cool and texted her, asking if he moved in without me knowing because it had been that long since I last had a night without him here. She said no, and persisted that it wasn't my business. He is loud and messy and doesn't pay a dime to live here, when he already lives at his parents' house for free. We're in our mid-20s, not even 19 or early 20s. Am I the a-hole for standing my ground and asking, as the other person who pays the bills, that he be here less frequently than 5 to 7 nights a week? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. She has basically moved him in without your or your landlord's permission. He pays no rent or utilities and is loud. If she refuses to either have him move out again or pay his part of the rent, etc., you might approach the landlord. You're usually obliged to get a landlord's permission before moving in an extra person. OP should really just start looking for their own place, because I don't see the roommates making nice if they are ex-friends. Agreed. If they complain to the landlord, he might agree to release them from the lease early, or kick the roommates out. That's how I'd approach it at least. Not the a-hole. If he's not contributing to the house while using all the utilities and food, that's a huge problem in itself. Also, you're entitled to have your house to yourself sometimes. I would tell her she either sticks to your original agreement or you're telling the landlord. Bringing the landlord in may create as much trouble for OP as it does for the others. If the landlord decides to evict, OP is getting evicted too. OP is quite possibly in violation of their lease right now. Not the a-hole. She flipped out and told me I have no right to determine how often he's here. That's where she's wrong. Is his name on the lease? Rhetorical question. I see it's not. I'd start looking for another roommate ASAP. In the meantime, I'd approach the landlord/leasing office and inform them that your roommate has basically moved someone into your place despite your objection. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for assuming I wouldn't have to pay rent? Around 7 years ago, a very good friend of mine moved away to a different country and sold me her house. She met this guy there and had a baby. 2 years after moving there and having the baby, her and her husband wanted to move back here to expand their family. She asked if she could stay with me in a spare room while she saved up some money to purchase a home. I happily said yes, since she was kind enough to let me buy her home for less, and she was also one of my bestest friends. So, I let them move into the basement, rent-free, because I know they needed more space than just a room with a toddler. My boyfriend runs his own business, and he employed her while she was trying to get a job, and he was only paying her like $200 cash weekly, and he didn't really need someone anyway, so it was just something temporary. The basement didn't have a kitchen, so they would come up to cook and eat, and I gave them access towards all my food. She would also buy groceries and told us that it's for all of us to share. I knew her husband had money and was retired, but still receiving money on a monthly basis from his country. I guess equivalent to a pension? But I have clue as to what that amount was. But he did not work while he was here. She's also decently wealthy, and we would constantly go shopping together and out to eat, and she would spend a good amount of money. She ended up staying for 4 years, which is longer than anticipated, and during that time, we talked about adding a bathroom for them, and her husband offered to do the work, so we didn't have to hire a company. We paid to add a bathroom, kitchen, and separate the empty floor plan to 2 bedrooms. This was mostly for their convenience, but we were planning on doing something along those lines in the future. She also stayed working for my boyfriend for the $200 weekly, even after we all found some jobs she qualified for. She now owns her own house and is renting out the 2nd floor. My boyfriend and I are in the process of buying a new home and completely renovating it and want to sell our current home ASAP. But we have to rent out somewhere to stay for a few months. We asked if we can stay in her unfinished basement, when she then informed us that the people living in the 2nd floor have moved out and offered for us to stay there instead. My boyfriend and I were ecstatic and agreed and sold our house and have to move out in 2 weeks. We all met up for dinner this weekend and she tells us how much our rent should be. I explained to her that we weren't planning on paying rent and why she didn't tell us about it sooner, and she asked why we assumed it would be free. In all honesty, I can afford the rent, and it is cheaper than an Airbnb, but I just felt that after what we did for them, it should have been free. Let me know. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. They lived rent-free for 4 years and can't let you crash for a couple of weeks? That's really crappy. I'd hazard she only offered you the 2nd floor for that very reason. I'd go stay in a hotel and avoid giving them your money if they can't see reason. Added to add, maybe present them with what their rent would have been had you charged them what they want to charge you. Obviously, you can't go back on this and ask for it, but maybe it will put into perspective just how much they saved. Thank you so much for the input. My boyfriend and I are currently looking for other options. Feel kind of weird for being like, this is how much you were to owe me if I wasn't such a nice person, because I didn't do it expecting anything in return. Not the a-hole. Please, examine your relationship with this fair-weather friend. I mean, you could mention that you thought it would be free, as you did let her live in yours for 4 years, and renovated it for her without so much as charging her a cent. Which is why you didn't think that you would have to pay rent. She'll probably be mortified to reveal a different color to that you have seen. I know. I valued our friendship so much, and when I did a favor, I always thought she'd do the same for me. Well, I guess I was wrong about that. Very obviously not the a-hole. It's a simple tit-for-tat situation. You could have been making money from that basement for 4 years, but instead chose to let your friend live rent-free there out of the kindness of your own heart. I would kill to have friends as generous as you, Opie. From what you've established about their financial situation, she doesn't need to rent money. If that's the case, there's no reason why they can't pay you back for your years of generosity by letting you live rent-free for a few months. Given the fact that she overstayed her welcome, Maybe she's worried you'll do the same to her, and that's why she wants to implement some kind of financial control here. Thank you so much. I feel extremely betrayed by her, and I've never felt that before because she always been equally as generous except this situation, which is why this is so hard for me to process. Am I the a-hole for my response when my co-worker called my husband useless? I, female 36, work at a company, and recently we had a new employee join our department, Pam. Most of my co-workers are moms. They suggested that we gather at lunch break and start conversations with Pam and get to know her more. Pam was friendly. We started talking about our typical day-to-day routine. When it was my turn, he answered saying that I wake up at 6 a.m., clean up, make breakfast, get the kids ready, then take them to school. Then pick them up from school after work, then do chores, then clean, then do laundry. Pam interrupted me saying, "Wow, so your husband is one of those useless, overgrown man-children that women try to parent along with their children then?" And everyone was like, I was taken aback, but said, "Actually, my husband is severely disabled. He can't work or do chores or childcare." She made a face and replied, "Oh well, my point still stands that you're basically living as a single mother, except, at least, your husband is not entirely useless in this case. It does bring something to the table, which is social security disability benefits, I suppose. But I'm sure it doesn't make up for him being an absent father and husband due to his disability." I got extremely offended that she was talking about my husband, the love of my life and father of my children, like that. The ladies were like, "Oh my god." So I said I didn't appreciate how she spoke about my husband, but she shrugged, saying, "Well, I wasn't technically lying, right? With people like your husband, there's really no point of being married. If you're acting like a single mom, then might as well become one, or go look for a real partner." I just lashed out asking what the hell she was talking about. It explained the important role my husband still has in mind in my children's lives. I called her rude and disrespectful for how she was talking about him, and how she belittled him as a husband and a father, and told her that her remarks about my husband could be nothing more than projection on her part. She laughed and said, "My husband is a doctor. That much is enough. Need I say more?" I asked her if her husband cooks and cleans after he gets home, then looked at her eyes and said, "The tiredness in your eyes suggests that all housework and childcare fall on you alone, correct?" She was red in the face and got quiet, looked around, then got up and excused herself to the toilet looking upset. The lady said that Pam has her own beliefs/visions about disabled partners should be, which is understandable, and she was just giving her honest opinion. But I took it too far by humiliating her and assuming her husband isn't doing anything. But according to her reaction, the answer was clear to me. They thought I shouldn't have spoken to our new co-worker in a mean way, and should have taken what she said with a grain of salt as it wasn't personal. They wanted me to apologize, but I said I won't apologize for what I said, even if I was rude. My co-worker's argument is that they too received harsh comments from Pam, but didn't take it personally since they were venting about other husbands. Edit. Pam isn't the first one to say stuff like that about my husband. My own family did this as well as others, so that's why I wasn't too surprised by her judgment, but still got offended. Now for the top comments. Not stay home. What do your co-workers mean you humiliated her? Didn't she say the exact same thing about your husband before she knew he was disabled? I think you did nothing wrong. And then even after finding out about his disability, instead of backpedaling or having the decency to be embarrassed, she doubles down instead and dug the hole even deeper. Not stay home. Don't start none, won't be none. That's the big a-hole move here. She had plenty of opportunities to shut up before Opie resorted to shutting her up. Can't take it? Don't deal it. Not like Opie said anything about colleague's husband she didn't say about Opie's husband, and colleague went much further. Not stay home. So here's what you learned about Pam today. Pam is an ableist. She's also a judgmental hypocrite who likely has one by one destroyed each of your co-workers in one way or another, so often that they shrug and say that's how she is. Here's what you've learned about your co-workers today. Your co-workers accept judgmental behavior as that's the way it is, and protect her from being hurt. They have accepted her behavior to the point where she is okay to humiliate others, you, but if she gets embarrassed, they protect her. I don't consider what you said rude, and I wouldn't apologize. Looks like karma's already found her, but she didn't learn. Absolutely. I noticed other behavioral issues with her, and it was obvious she's only pretending to be nice and has a completely different personality than what she's showing. I feel uncomfortable around her honestly, even before this conversation occurred. I think you hit a nerve about her husband. Her strong views came from somewhere. He may be a doctor, but I suspect he is a piss-poor husband, partner, and father. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not showing up for a dinner with my sister when I found out she was planning to set me up? I, 34 male, am a single dad of 2 amazing kids. My 18-year-old son and my 14-year-old daughter. 14 years ago, my fiancé and the mother of my children died suddenly, and it destroyed me. She was my everything. We were supposed to grow old together, raise our babies together, share a life. She was my best friend for 15 years and my love for 6. After she died, my family expected me to date again, find love again, marry someone, and find another mother for my kids. But I have never had any interest in meeting someone else. I focus on being a good dad and enjoying my life the best that I can. I never wanted to move on, and I don't feel like that's something that will ever happen for me. About 2 years after my fiancé died, though, my sister started getting pushier. She told me I needed to find someone who could make me happy, that I deserved better than staying single for the rest of my life. I told her that it's my choice, and if that's what feels right to me, then it's what I'll do. For the most part, she lets it go once I say no, but she brings it up often enough that it has affected our closeness. 2 years ago, we stopped talking for months after she brought my kids into this plot to set me up, and was disappointed they didn't want to take part in it. When I found out, I was furious, and I thought that was the last of it when we reconciled because she saw I was willing to not speak to her, and her apology was the most genuine it had ever been. But then last week she told me she wanted to hang out. We were supposed to go to dinner in her favorite place. But a few days before that, I found out she was actually trying to set me up with this woman she knows. Once I found out, I just refused to show up. That dinner was Thursday, and yesterday she was furious that I hadn't shown. She said they had been waiting for me. I asked her who they was, and she said she had brought someone along for me to meet. I told her I no longer trust her after this. My parents sent me a message last night that it was rude to be a no-show, and I should understand they just worry I'm putting my life on hold and denying myself happiness. Am I the a-hole? Wow, not the a-hole. Your sister is not respecting your choice. I would not have showed up either. I don't think any of my family particularly like or respect my choice. The others push less because they know I will not tolerate someone trying to go against my boundaries and wishes. Apparently, I now need to stop talking to or seeing my sister because she will never learn. It's great that your kids get it and that take part in her plans. I don't get why she can't respect your choice. She doesn't get to decide what makes you happy. This, all the way. It enrages me when people try to use kids in their idiotic plots. Particularly this one. Hey kids, wanna help me get you a new mommy? No. Just hell no. Not the a-hole. You're not ready to date and they should respect that. I get that your family wants you to be happy, but this is not helpful at all. I also hate the implication that you can't be happy without a significant other. I know it bothers them that I spent my 20s and now into my 30s without a significant other or even dating. But you know, I'm living my life the way I want, and I don't see myself ever dating. But that should be my choice. I'm old enough to decide this for myself. Not the a-hole. My mom never dated after my dad passed. I asked her why once, and her answer had stuck with me through the years. I already had the best. Why would I want anything else? If you have met your soulmate, your life is complete, even if they have passed. I relate to that a lot. I was in love with someone who was truly my best friend, and we didn't get enough time. But she gave me the 2 people I love the most in the world, and I am forever grateful for that. Next story. Am I the a-hole for asking my boyfriend to stop sharing everything with my sister? Hi, I'm 24 female and have been dating my boyfriend, 26 male, for 5 years now. We grew up together as neighbors, and were friends for a couple years before dating. I love him so much, and I want to marry him. His family's great and I adore them all. And it's great with my family too. He also formed a great relationship with my sister, 21 female. But the issue is that I think their bond is too close. My boyfriend and I live together, but he spends a lot of time with her. Albeit I'm sort of busy. I'm currently in grad school for engineering, so I have to go to my classes. My boyfriend works full-time. My sister is currently taking a gap year, but that 1 year has extended from when she was 18. She comes over when I'm in seminars/classes. They have tons of inside jokes and share the same sense of humor and taste in movies. It makes me feel left out. But when I try to include myself, they both stop being so enthusiastic and acting like it's super awkward to have me there. My sister and I were close growing up, but started drifting when I went to uni. When my boyfriend isn't there and I talk to her, she becomes kinda cold and sometimes says rude things. Once, she told me to my face that I'm not good enough for him, that he deserves better, which made me cry for a couple days. He also gets her gifts for the most random achievements. Like, he got her a present for making it through the week. Even though she doesn't do anything, as she isn't currently working or trying to pursue a hobby or interest, she's just taking it easy. Her own words. Don't get me wrong, I'm glad my boyfriend and my sister are friends. But my major problem is that my boyfriend tells her everything. Literally everything. He tells her things he doesn't tell me and talks to her about me and our relationship. She knows all our issues and good parts, to a level of detail that I wouldn't even tell my closest friends or parents. She even knows the grades I got in my midterm/finals and what I think about my manager. I work part-time to contribute to our apartment, but I also get paid for my research, which goes towards our needs as well, which I feel is unnecessary for her to know since I didn't tell her myself. I asked him to step back a bit and stop telling her things about me and our relationship, but he was shocked and told me that I'm an a-hole for even requesting it. Now I feel guilty. So am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments before the little update. Not the a-hole, but I'm 90% certain your sister and boyfriend are hooking up while you're in class. I'm 100% certain. I reserve 10% that they're just having an emotional affair, but sister at the very least would like it to be more. And when it tells you that someone deserves better than their current partner is talking about themselves. Not the a-hole. They're both grossly out of line and are at minimum having an emotional affair. Kick them both to the curb. I don't see how this is salvageable. I wrote way too many lines in my judgment where emotional affair would have cut it. Think you hit the nail on the head. Who is he in a relationship with? You or your sister or both? There are so many red flags here that I would be taking a serious look at your relationship. Keeps OP for money and the sister is a side chick to bang when OP is at home at this point. The level of we know each other very well is very unsettling, and it sounds like an emotional affair. However, I think there is more to it. OP needs to take a step back and find out. Edit. Thank you all for your responses and advice. You've literally made me reconsider everything that I thought I knew. The consensus is that there is something shady going on with my boyfriend and my sister, which just makes me want to vomit. I'm now reading into every interaction and conversation, and I feel so naive for not noticing the red flags. I'm going to take your guys' suggestions and set up some nanny cams in my apartment. Either way, it'll be good security. If nothing happens, then it'll be reassuring. And if something does happen, well, I'll deal with that after. I'm going to drive to the store right now to pick up the cameras. I'll try to update soon, hopefully with positive news. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my husband to suck it up? I am the main caregiver of our baby, 6 months old. I deal with a lot, including a medical condition that occasionally paralyzes me from neck down. It can take a few hours until I can move my hands when it happens, and sometimes even a whole day. My legs take longer. For the last 2 weekends, suddenly my hubby gets a high fever. No other symptoms, no COVID we checked, and claims he is too sick to even watch the baby for a minute while I pee. Last weekend I gave him all the space he needed, went to my folks' house and took care of him every few hours when my parents watched the baby. I was frustrated, but I understood. During the week he was okay again, worked till late and acted normal. Yesterday, a few hours after I started getting paralyzed, he suddenly broke with a low fever again, crying out that he is sick and he can't take care of the baby. With only one arm working, I took care of the baby all night long, terrified that it would go paralyzed as well. Whenever I begged for help, like change his diaper or make him a bottle, He yelled at me and got mad. This morning I lost all my limbs again, and my jaw was stuck for an hour. After that, while he complains that he's too sick and I need to handle the baby all day, I yelled at him to suck it up and take care of his child because it is not safe at all. I can't move my fingers. How can I keep a baby from falling, or feed him, or help him at all? He got really offended, saying I should be more compassionate to his fever and how cold he feels, and that I should find a way to unparalyze myself so he can sleep. I got even more mad, considering how many doctors told me that I cannot stress myself out of it, or it gets worse. He also said I am the a-hole, since it seems like I don't believe his mild fever is as severe as my condition. Am I the a-hole for not agreeing with him and telling him to take some responsibility for his child? Edit. My paralysis happens every few months, and I know an hour beforehand that something is wrong. I always call my husband or my emergency babysitters. I have a few. It only happened once before today since the birth, and I wouldn't give birth if it wasn't under some control. It is the first time in my marriage that he acts like this about my condition or the baby. I am not a neglectful parent just because I am disabled. I would contact family/babysitter before, but I couldn't move my fingers well enough to use the phone. I asked my hubby to call someone, but he refused because he was too cold. My sister-in-law came as soon as I managed to pick my phone up. I just needed him to watch the baby until then and after that. Not day home. It sounds like he's faking, honestly. He's fine during the week, but when he has to help with the baby on the weekends, he's sick? Even if he was faking, when you have a kid, the kid comes first. Sometimes you have to take care of the kid when you are sick or hurt. It just happens. Kids bring a lot of colds home and everyone at home catches them. Every parent has to take care of a kid when they feel like crap. It is how it works. The fact that he thinks he should get a pass because he has a fever, which is honestly the least crappy symptom you can have, even though his wife is paralyzed, is a sign he is a selfish a-hole and a bad parent. But if he gets a fever again, he needs to see a doctor. Recurring fevers are just not a normal thing. And he certainly wouldn't want to pass anything along to the baby now, would he? This has to be rage bait. No one is genuinely that whiny and self-centered and absolutely stupidly careless. With a highly unlikely chance this is real, it'd obviously be not a hole. Your husband is absolutely useless. It is pretty obviously faking sick to get out of parenting. You don't have a partner. If you don't get a partner, what's the point of being married? Wish it was, really. I'm sitting here crying as this is not the man I married. Update. Thanks to your advice, I found the voice controls on my phone and can now use them. I had to talk with him without him yelling at me that he is cold and too sick to deal with me. I'll try to stay in another room tomorrow when I feel better.